Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Lewiston City Council meeting of Monday, July 27, 2015. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. First up on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll be led in the pledge by Councilor Blakey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item of business is the citizen comments section. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items or other items they wish to bring to the attention of the council. Citizens are encouraged to discuss operational issues in advance with the city manager. And in consideration of others wishing to speak, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Do we have any citizen comments this evening? Could you come down here, sir? We'll need your name and address for the record. Please.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Jeff Lawn. I live at 1834 7th Avenue, Lewiston, Idaho.
Okay.
There's a kind of an injustice that I'd like to talk about that's happening here in Lewiston that I kind of got stung with today. I am a metal detectorist, and I got stopped by the, I guess it's Parks and Recreation's director that's out of the community center down there in Lewiston. And he told me that I could metal detect in the park. I was at Locomotive Park because they had the car show there and a lot of people, and wherever there's a lot of people, they lose stuff. And so I was metal detecting. And he came and stopped me and says, I got a phone call saying that you're digging in park. And I said, well, I'm cutting my plug and getting my target, and, you know, that's what I'm doing. Yes, metal detecting. And he says, well, you can't dig. And I said, what do you mean that I can't dig? Well, you can't disturb the grass. You can't cut the grass. You can't do anything with the grass. I says, okay. And I was standing over a target that I had just found as he came up to me, which I knew was only like just right under the grass. It's just right there. And I said, so you mean to tell me that I can't look for this target, even if I take my finger and dig it in the grass and make a little hole to get that target out of there? And he says, no, that's digging in the ground. Squirrels dig deeper than that in the ground than I was digging, you know? So he says, well, digging in the grass hurts the grass. Well, I could beg to differ with him. I've done a lot of grass work in my day, and I know that if you cut a plug out of a piece of sod, remove it, and put it back, it doesn't kill the sod. The sod will regrow. I do agree that if the ground is really dry and you cut a plug, then it may not grow. It may dry or die before it grows again when it gets enough water. But I know those conditions, and I don't hunt places that have those conditions. I was kind of upset about the fact that I asked him to find, I'd been hunting there for about 15 minutes. I asked him, look, see if you can find any place that I've dug a hole, any place. And he couldn't. There was no, because I replaced all my divots, just like a good golfer would, so you can't see it, and then I move on. But yet you could see where the car show had been all day, you know, on Saturday. You could see where cars would drive in, where tires had spun, where they cranked tires to park cars. It was tearing up grass. You know, they were doing more damage than what I do, and yet I'm the one that's being stopped doing my hobby for what he's thinking that's happening to the grass, to what really isn't happening. He might not have been happy, but I got a little curt, but at that particular point, I said, so what do you want me to do with all this stuff I got in my pouch? And what I have in my pouch is garbage. There's bottle caps, there's pull tabs, there's glass, there's pieces of metal, there's can slough from Charta. The people that mow the lawns, they don't move beer cans and pop cans out of the way when they mow. They just mow. And they just chop that stuff up and they throw it into the ground. Well, we come along with metal detectors, we find a lot of that stuff, and we pull it out of the ground. I've got a 5-gallon bucket of garbage that I pull out of the parks. Monthly, I get this. And I hunt every day, well, except for Sunday, but I hunt every day. And so I get all this garbage, and I know that there aren't a lot of us here in town, but the 4 or 5 other people that hunt on a regular basis, they find as much garbage as I do, and we pull this out. I go down here to Chestnut Park, of course that's Washington, and I hunt that beach, and I pull everything out of that beach that I find. Like anything that hits my metal detector gets pulled out of the ground. So I guess what I'm asking is that for all that I do, and I don't destroy anything, that I'm looking to see if we can get this regulation changed or a permit or something for metal detectors so that we don't get in trouble and have a $100 fine a day for digging a plug that isn't any worse than a divot out of a golf course and you put it back to be able to do my hobby. I've been approached twice now, that's why I'm here, so.
Okay.
Other than that, I'd like to, if you got any questions about my hobby or anything, I'd be glad to answer them, but.
Anybody have any questions? We have a request, how's that?
Sure.
When you get back to take your seat, if you could give your contact information to Carrie, would you take it?
Sure.
And maybe Mr. Bennett, you could agree to have a chat with Mr. Long?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I mean, Ms. Long's correct. I mean, it is in our city code.
But I don't think we've ever looked in detail at the issue of metal detecting and how that's applied to the code and trying to protect the grass and the ground in the parks. So, yeah, let's
but what I'm saying is I understand, and I've got the rules right here that I read carefully. But the events that you have in the parks do as much or more damage than what we ever think about doing in a park. And that's the same way with animals. You want your neighbor's dog to come into your yard and pee? No. Why? Because it leaves a yellow mark. People go out and they see yellow marks and they see us out there digging and they say that, well, it's metal detector guys that are doing this. And they said, no, that's a dog stain there,
Okay.
And
Mr. Long, I think.
my 3 minutes are up. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
okay.
This kind of is how some of these processes start. So, like I said, if you will please give your
I do,
information,
'cause
and then
I don't
we
wanna
can
get in
take a look
trouble.
at it, and then we can make an informed decision on whether it's working or not working. Or, but no, I really appreciate your comments.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You make a good point, Mr. Long. So just come give me come over to my office and sit down with me and we'll talk about it, see what we can do.
Sure, I got a ton of world. I'm retired now.
All right. So if you'll just give me your phone number or whatever, and we'll get that.
Okay, do we have any other citizen comments this evening? Again, thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there anything people want to move off the consent agenda to the active?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Collins.
item C, if we could move that to active.
Okay. So item C, final plat, will be moved to item F on the active agenda.
And item A.
Yes, sir. Councilor Daniel.
Item A.
Oh, item A, I'm sorry. I thought you said may I.
I-
So item A will be moved to item,
Hold on. If it'd be acceptable, I could just make the comment during the consent agenda if you want. If you mind if I make just a brief comment
Oh.
about it, as opposed to moving it?
okay, well, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay with that. So we won't move item A. Any others? Okay, all those in favor of reading the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh, as amended? Thank you. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Approving the minutes of the June 22nd budget work session,
No.
I'm sorry?
How about before you start reading, Councilor Daniels wanted to make a comment?
So on the July 13th minutes, on the very back page, it talks about how at the last budget meeting, I'd requested that the $100,000 be reinstated for ADA compliance, and that Mr. Davies had mentioned that those dollars were already proposed to be earmarked for the Southway Bridge. I never said to actually use those 100,000. When I was talking about reinstating that 100,000 for ADA compliance, that could come from anywhere within the general fund. It could literally come from that Southway Bridge project. It could come from community park. It could come from any department, anything within the general fund. So I wanted to make sure that I was on record saying I wasn't trying to pull funds from the Southway Bridge project. That was it.
Okay, thank you. Are we clear on that? Okay, thank you. Okay, back to the reading.
Approving the minutes of the June 22nd budget work session, July 6th work session, and the July 13th, 2015 budget work session. Accepting the minutes of the June 4th, 2015 Historic Preservation Commission. Approving the bid award for polymer to SNF Polydine Incorporated of Riceboro, Georgia, in the amount of 98 cents per pound for an estimated annual cost of $20,237.49. And approving the vouchers payable dated July 3rd, 2015 through July 16th, 2015 in the amount of $1,580,633.97.
Okay, councilors, the consent agenda's been read. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Okay, now we'll move on to the active agenda. Item A is a consent to annexation. This is approving a consent to annexation agreement for 3949 Industrial Way, King's Thrones. Mr. Bennett, you want to introduce this?
Yes, sir.
This is an agreement for one of the properties on Industrial Way, which the city has recently begun to extend city services to, and that began with the development of the new Clearwater composting facility. So part of the plan there was that as properties began to develop along Industrial Way in that area in between East Main and the Clearwater composting facility, they would be required to annex into the city, and they would then be able to receive city services. So that's what this is. It's a consent to annexation agreement with King's Thrones for that purpose.
Okay, and this is basically the same agreement we had with Superior Handling.
It is.
Our last meeting.
It is.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to agree to the consent to annexation.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? And I've got my special cue card that says by roll call vote. Thank you, Jana.
Councilmember Maldonado.
Aye.
Councilor Lickey.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Kleber.
Aye.
Councilor Daniels.
Aye.
Councilor Collins.
Aye.
Councilor Randall.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries 7-0. Okay, next up, Resolution 2015-32. This is accepting a dedication of right-of-way from CCR LLC to the city and approving a right-of-way contract between the city and CCR LLC.
Mr. Hayhurst is here, I believe, this evening. I'll ask him to address this, if he's there. You need to stay up there for the next item, Dan, we're basically together.
Mayor and council, I'm up here. I've got Alana Bailey with me also, one of our engineers. This project that was done at this intersection required 2 dedications of right-of-way. One is this item. The next one is the next item on your agenda there. They were very small dedications at the corners of 2 of the corners of the intersection. And it was mainly, I believe, for signalization improvements, but Alana would be the one to speak to those if you have questions along those lines.
That is correct. It's for signalization improvement, it's widening on 16th Avenue to include additional turn lanes.
So we're looking at more turn lanes other than, or more than the 3 lanes we currently have?
Correct. It'll be a 5-lane section on both sides of 16th Avenue, similar to what's on 17th Street there.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Does that mean the no left turn from 7 to 7 goes away there?
Correct.
That'll be an improvement. Folks will enjoy that.
I agree.
Revenue loss for the city police department, possibly.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2015-32
So moved.
Second.
by roll call. I thought it was ordinances, not resolutions.
For any agreement.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second.
Counselor Moldenhawer.
Aye.
Counselor Leahy.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Clifford.
Aye.
Counselor Daniel.
Aye.
Counselor Collins.
Aye.
Counselor Randall.
Aye.
Okay, a motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have Resolution 2015-33. And this is accepting a dedication of right-of-way from Clearwater Medical Properties, LLC, to the city and approving a right-of-way contract between the city and Clearwater Medical Properties, LLC. Mr. Hayers.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is just the opposite corner of that same intersection, same type of improvements.
Any questions for Mr. Hayers? Well, it'd be nice to have the improvements and have that intersection cleared up. I know it's not going to happen overnight, but it'll be soon. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2015-33 by roll call vote.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Counselor Moldenhawer.
Aye.
Counselor Leahy.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Clifford.
Aye.
Counselor Daniel.
Aye.
Counselor Collins.
Aye.
Counselor Randall.
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. And next up, we have a Resolution 2015-40, and this is approving a state-local agreement between the city and the Idaho Transportation Department for construction costs associated with improvements on 18th Avenue from 8th Street to 10th Street in Lewiston. Ms. Bailey, do you have something to address on this, or?
I believe Sean has something prepared. Would you want to address it, or would you like me to? Thank you, councilors. This is for the construction agreement for a grant the city received a couple of years ago to do pedestrian and bike and just multi-mobility improvements on 18th Avenue from 8th Street to 10th Street.
So this would be a continuation of what we did from 10th to,
From 10th to 18th, correct.
okay,
This is the last piece.
okay,
Yeah, a couple questions.
yes. Counselor Daniel.
So before the meeting, I had a few extra minutes, so I decided to go to 18th Ave. I never drive that normally. And I was able to talk to a couple residents, and they're fine. They're overall, they're fine with the project, and I don't have any questions as far as the cost goes. However, they did have a couple concerns, and I couldn't answer them because I didn't have the actual aerial project plan of that section. And they were curious if that new section from 8th to 10th, if there will be any additional traffic circles.
There are no traffic circles in that section.
Okay.
And just so you know, I did go door to door to each one of the residents, so hopefully they have my contact information if they have more questions.
And then they also had a question as far as there's a bike lane on both sides, is that?
Correct. Through that whole area, there's a bike lane on both sides.
So will people that currently use the right-of-way for parking, will they be losing that?
Parking will be allowed on the north side, and on the south side, it will not be allowed.
Okay. And I think that was all the questions they had that I couldn't answer, so.
Okay. Counselor Blakey.
And I have the opportunity to drive that street 3-4 times a day. And two things. I think effectively, actually, this question is being prompted by the city council up in Moscow, because they came down and they have a road that they're thinking about doing a similar project on, and their city engineer came down and was checking it out, and he was asking me a question, and I didn't know the answer, and hopefully he followed up with it. Effectively, has it reduced the traffic count?
We've seen a reduction in counts as well as reduction in speeds.
In speeding? So
Correct.
we've seen a reduction in the amount of tickets that were being written there?
I don't know the answer to tickets. I don't know if there was a high ticket writing, but we did a speed study through there. Before we did the project, we did a study and saw what the 85th percentile was and saw how many were exceeding that amount. And we've done one since the improvements from 10th to 18th have gone in, and we've seen a reduction in that speed.
I know several times now I've gone and used 16th Street just because. My other question is, so the construction we'll be approving here will be kind of finishing on the south side of the traffic circles where part of it's been completed, but part of it hasn't been completed?
No, the construction from 10th to 18th is not complete. Last year, they quit the work, and now they're picking it back up, from what I understand, in the coming weeks. So this is another section.
Oh, but those traffic circles will be completed all the way around, not left half undone.
Correct.
Perfect.
Mr. Stubers?
City Engineer Sean Stubers. Maybe I can follow up on that question. What do you mean as far as they being finished up?
Well, there's curb work. If you're approaching those traffic circles from the Nazarene Church, so you're going east. The first one is completely done. The second one that you run into, it was partially. The work was done on the north side, but nothing on the south side. There's no curb work. You're driving up on a little bit on grass and dirt sometimes. I'm assuming at some point in time that's all going to be completed.
So the primary purpose of that project is to get a continuous sidewalk corridor along one side of the street all the way, basically from 8th all the way to 18th Street. And so the improvements that you see should always be basically that curb gutter and sidewalk on the one side of the street. On portions of the project, we have it on the south side. On portions of further to the east, you'll see it on the north side. But on those traffic circles, you'll typically see an unfinished section on the opposite side. We have enough asphalt width there. We'll add a little bit of more asphalt width to one traffic circle, but you won't see complete curb gutter and sidewalk around the remaining edges.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
If I had known that, I guess I wasn't on the city council when that was first put in front of us. If I had known that, I wouldn't have voted for it. In fact, now knowing what you've told me now, I'd be in all favor for removing them. Because I think it looks shoddy. It looks like a half-done project.
Okay.
One side looks great, and then and then it just drops off. Middle of winter, it just fills up with snow and ice and freezes. I'm not happy about that at all. Not that I can say a lot about it right now, but it looks like an unfinished project. And I would be in favor of removing the circles then. And I'm not sure what we accomplished by leaving it half undone, in my opinion. I guess I didn't know that. I should have been a better informed councilor.
Is there adequate drainage on the unfinished side? Was that the north side you were talking about?
It remains the way it was previously.
Okay.
That whole section of road, there's limited curb gutter and sidewalk to direct water, and so it just kind of falls along the edge of the existing asphalt, and it'll continue to do that.
Okay, but if we put curb in there, then we would be moving water somewhere.
Yes, correct.
And is there adequate drainage for that?
We have been picking it up through like retention swale type of things, so we could
Okay,
address it
so we
that
don't
way.
don't really have any catch basin into the pipe type thing?
There's limited catch basins and stormwater infrastructure on that corridor.
Okay. Councilor Daniel.
On the north side of the new section, will there be new sidewalks going in there? I know there's I think one or two houses that actually have sidewalk in front of their house on the north side of that new section. Will we be adding more?
Which portion?
From 8th to 10th on the north side. Will there be sidewalks?
For the 8 to 10 portion, there's not new sidewalk on our north side. There's pedestrian crossings, but not sidewalk along there. There's existing curb and gutter along, I want to say all of it, but it is the majority of it.
Okay.
Councilor Collins.
You mentioned parking on one side of the street, not the other. Is that completely from 8th to 18th, or is it just a section from 10th to 18th that you
That's-
mentioned?
That is just from 8th to 10th.
8th to 10th, so from 10th on to 18th, you can park on either side of the street.
Sean can answer that since he was the engineer on that one. I'm not sure.
It remains the same. Again, on the edge, that there was no existing curb gutter sidewalk before the project. People that park in the area park kind of on the gravel, asphalt area. They'll continue to do that. We basically left the width the same from the center line to the unfinished section.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Blakey.
I know we're not going to get it in this year's budget, but I guess, to me, that's always going to look like an unfinished project. And I guess I would advocate that at some future point, in some future budget, we get that job done and get it done correctly. It just looks like something the city started and then moved on down to the next one and forgot about it. And I'm not happy with that at all, because I know that I've answered that question now to several people asking me, when are they going to finish the paving work around those circles? And I've answered their questions incorrectly. So shame on Bob for not being informed.
There will be a little bit of additional pavement widening, but there won't be curb and gutter around the edge of the traffic circles like you see on the opposite side.
All right.
Well, Councilor Blakey, that's why I asked the question. If there's nowhere to direct the water to, there's no point in putting the curb. Because all you're going to do is take it down a curb and it's going to go flying straight down the street into somebody's yard.
I don't disagree, there's issues there. Like I said, I wasn't around when it was approved. I think if I had been more astute, I would have asked more questions.
The problem we run into is, this funding for this project came directly from federal FTA funds and CDBG funds, and we used basically all the funds available in those two pots for this project. So if you were going to do more of the project, it would either have to be through a grant application or 100% city funded for the improvements. So we're just always up against budget constraints. It's just, where do you stop with the project?
Any further questions? Thank you. Okay, I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2015-40 by roll call.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Keeping, finish with a comment. Keeping in mind that we're only discussing 8th Street to 10th Street. Okay.
Councilor Maldonado.
Aye.
Councilor Blakey.
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Cooper.
Aye.
Councilor Daniel.
Aye.
Councilor Collins.
Aye.
Councilor Randall.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries 6-1. Okay, next up, item E is vouchers payable to Albertsons in the amount of, or from 7/3/15 through 7/16/15 in the amount of $27.32. Entertain a motion to approve vouchers payable to Albertsons.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and next up, item F. And this is from our consent, move from the consent agenda. This is the final plat for the Estates of Canyon Crest Phase 2, conditionally approving a final plat for 32 residential lots on 8.83 acres located northwest of the Estates of Canyon Crest Phase 1 in the East Orchards.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Blakey.
I just need to disclose that my corporation has a working relationship with one of the owners of this property. I don't feel that relationship, though, will affect any decision-makings I'll be making at this time, but there is a business relationship.
Okay. Ms. Gomez? It's okay for him to, thank you. Just thank you for disclosing. Mr. Hayers, do you want to come down and present?
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm not sure what you'd like me to add to what the package gave you. If you have any questions, I would be glad to answer those.
I think Councilor Collins may have some.
My questions aren't necessarily directly related to the packet, but just some of the implications of these type of developments going in, and I wasn't exactly sure who to ask. And one, I will say I'm fully supportive of the project and everything here, and will be voting in favor of this. My question, though, is, and I've been approached recently by residents within Phase 1 of Canyon Crest, primarily about kids crossing the street at Burrow, getting to Camelot, et cetera. And this is a question for myself and to help others as well, as when these things go in, what is the process or the procedures for checking the streets for potential crosswalks, changes in speed limits? And I went up there and checked it out, and they're relatively close to Camelot. Right now, there's, from what I understand, 12 to 20 kids. With this going in, there's going to be even more kids on the streets, crossing the streets. When we have these things go in, do we do studies as to what our traffic patterns are now, and do we make changes, or we propose changes in this? I know we have some forms for requesting changes, but do we as a city make proactive decisions in that regard?
We in general, we're very sensitive that, to that type of issue when we're going to develop an area that has not been developed before on traffic patterns, pedestrian patterns, and so forth. Sean Stubers, our city engineer, is here that deals mostly with that rather than the city surveyor like I am. So
Thank you.
I'll let Sean add some more detail.
Yes, on that particular project, we have the developers do what's called a traffic impact analysis. So they look at multiple things, bicycle, pedestrian, vehicle traffic in the subdivision, and make recommendation for improvements. On that particular subdivision, there was an agreement made to offset sidewalk requirements on both sides of the street for some dollars that would be set aside to extend sidewalk towards Camelot. When the developers not these existing developers, but previous developers got into kind of a financial situation, they made an agreement to withdraw those funds and put back the requirements for sidewalk on both sides. So there won't be additional sidewalk being extended to Camelot, but we are currently looking at the intersection of 18th and Burrow right now for a possible crosswalk.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Sean. Okay. Well, I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve the Estates of Canyon Crest Phase 2, the final plat.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Thank you, everybody. That finishes our active agenda. We'll move on to unfinished and new business. City councilor comments. Do we have any councilor comments this evening? Councilor Daniel.
Just to welcome our new police chief. He's in the audience. Oh, hold on.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Continue.
I was going to bring him down. No, I was going to bring him down here,
go
but, okay. Well, Chief, while we're on it, since council comments, would you please come down? Welcome aboard. If you want to maybe address the people and tell them how glad you are to be in Lewiston?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I appreciate the opportunity to address everyone, Mayor and City Council. Appreciate the support and the selection, unanimous selection. I really appreciate that fact. I'm really happy to be here in Lewiston. Coming from Las Vegas, Nevada, 22 and a half years there with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and I'm looking forward to taking my my experience there, my education from Las Vegas, and bringing it here to the city of Lewiston to make this just the safest community that I can. I'm looking forward to working with everyone here and with the community at large, and I'm looking forward to input from the community as well to make the police department the best it can be as well. So thank you for your support, and thank you for having me here today.
You bet. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
And for the record, it's Chris Ankney, correct?
It is Christopher
Chief.
Ankeny, yes.
Chris Ankney.
Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Not another Ankney.
Do you have any other council comments this evening? I was just visiting with a friend yesterday, and she brought up an interesting point, and I didn't have quite the answer, so I've talked to Mr. Bennett about it before the meeting, but she was the beneficiary of an ambulance ride to the hospital, ALS Transport, and then she promptly received her bill for $796, and she thought, well, that was interesting because what am I paying my taxes for? And now I have to pay for an ambulance ride. And I didn't quite have the answer. I said, well, that's just the way it is, but that wasn't obviously good enough. So I've talked to Mr. Bennett, and maybe we'll try and get some information out to discuss how we got to where we're at with our ambulance fees. I know we're going to be discussing that soon as far as part of the budget process, because we do have a slated increase in fees for this year of, what, 5%, I believe?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to relay this to Chief Michael Buss just prior to the meeting. He'd be happy to say a few words if you'd like on the subject.
Okay. Chief, have you got a minute?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the fire department has been charging for ambulance user fees for many, many years. The fire department's budget obviously comes out of the general fund. The fire department's budget consists of the emergency medical services, which is our EMS, the ambulance, also the fire engines for fire suppression, our hazardous materials response, our emergency rescue with technical. The ambulance fees goes back into the general fund, and it is a large contributor to the general fund to help offset the budget. Last year was well over $1.7 million that went into that fund. Ambulance fees are a very common mechanism because there is an avenue for recovering those expenses through Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance. And that is just something that's happened across the board nationwide. I would like our public to understand that we do, through MSAB, we do a user fee study every other year. We just conducted that study, and actually in the city of Lewiston, we are one of the cheapest ambulance rates in the entire region. There are communities just nearby to where an ALS ambulance charge could cost you well over $1,500 to $1,800. So we do our best to make sure that we're trying to have those fees that are balancing out those and that are what we can help recover. But those do help offset a large portion of the general fund budget, and that's what the ambulance user fees are there for. But we do pay very close attention to make sure that we're not charging our residents and our customers above and beyond that.
Okay. Well, I'll preface it by saying she was very, very happy with the professionalism of the staff.
I will pass that on.
And that wasn't the point. She says, but she doesn't get a charge if she called because her deck is on fire. She doesn't get charged.
That is correct.
She wasn't seeing the distinction there.
Yeah. And part of that is there's not a fee currently anywhere throughout the United States where it allows most fire agencies to charge for a fire response. It's just one of those things. We could always look at not charging for ambulance fees in the city, but the offset would be a loss of close to $2 million in revenue to the general fund that would have to offset, obviously, some other form. But yeah. And I think part of it is a lot of people don't understand that there are those times that, you do call and we do not charge for those services. But it's just kind of that standard has been going on many years, and we can do a better job to make sure our customers understand that if they were to be transported, that they would receive a bill.
Okay. Councilor Blakey.
Just two questions, actually. You got my curiosity up.
Yes, sir.
Of the 1.7 you said?
1.7 million? Mm-hmm.
Just roughly, nothing's not going to hold your feet to the fire. What percentage of that is transporting outside of the city?
Outside of the city?
Outside of the city, going somewhere other, and just not directly picking my mother-in-law up from Grell and taking her to the Lewiston Hospital, to St. Joe's.
The revenue from our out-of-area transports, which would be taking a patient outside of our general response area, so that would include taking someone to Pullman, Moscow, Spokane, Coeur d'Alene. We average about 83 transports a year. So I could pull those numbers for you off the top of my head. I couldn't tell you exactly, but it is a very small number of the 7,036 responses we did last fiscal year. It is a very small percentage of that.
Okay.
So the bulk is within the city.
Perfect. Just need, my second question was, in your survey of how many different fire departments and cities that you serve, how many were actually in the survey?
How many do we end up getting reports back from?
Yeah.
I believe we had 7 or 8. It wasn't, if you could reference the packet when we had the budget, I provide you with that. They were all fire departments. The private entities did not respond to our survey.
That was where I was taking my next question is, of the, I guess it's one of these, answer to the best of your ability, not putting you on the spot. Is it more common to have private ambulance service in the Northwest versus city-run services?
Much more less common. Much more less common. Yeah.
Trying to think if that's good English or not, much more or less.
What we tend to see, Counselor, is fire-based EMS is the largest percentage of ambulance service in the United States, and especially in the Pacific Northwest.
Offered by cities?
Offered by cities, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll also throw this out, when it was about 7 years ago that we finally entered into agreements with the local entities around here, Soton County, Whitman County, Nez Perce County, to get into agreements to where we actually were getting reimbursed a little bit for the ability to provide the service outside the city limits.
That's correct.
Not the transports out, but bringing people from outside the city limits in. So we were able to work that out and actually have people help the citizens in the area at large actually contribute to our fleet, if you will. So.
Yeah, those contracts that we have with the Soton County, Nez Perce County, and Whitman County District 14 encompass well over $500,000 into the general fund. And then we also get the ambulance user fees on top of that. So it is a nice percentage of our rates. But that over $500,000 is guaranteed income each year based upon those contracts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, well, thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other councilor comments this evening?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Randall.
I was made aware the last meeting that the airport authority had was that 3 people from the Friends of the Airport resigned. So if anybody's interested in signing up with the Friends of the Airport, they've done a lot for the airport. One of the last events that we had up there was the historical plaque for the Zimmerlees Airlines up there at the airport, and they did a lot of these projects like that. So if anybody's interested, we'll get a hold of the airport and they can get contact information.
Okay. And while we're on the subject,
Okay. While we're on the subject, Mike Martin, who is one of the members of the Airport Authority Board, has turned in his resignation effective September 30th. So we'll be looking for somebody to fill that spot. It's one of the individuals that the city picked. Now, according to the Joint Powers Agreement, I believe it's 2 people are picked by the county, 2 people are picked by the city, and then the 5th person is picked by the two entities, the county and the city. So
they're representatives.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So if anybody's interested in applying for the city seat on the Joint Airport Authority, I would recommend contacting our city clerk, Carrie Ravencroft, and filling out an app, and hopefully we can maybe get a pool of candidates so we can conduct, I would anticipate trying to conduct some interviews in September for sure. And Mr. Martin being one of the original members appointed back when that was formed, Mike's done a great job and been a good asset, but I think it's time for him he wants to move on and do other things. So anyways, Joint Airport Authority, there's an opening. Anything else this evening? Mr. Bennett?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council.
Now's a good time to remind our citizens that the city is about to start the formal budget adoption process. And we're moving into August, and we'll have 3 separate budget meetings on August 10th, August 17th, and August 24th, all here at the Lewis Clark State College Telecommunications Forum, all starting at 6 p.m. So we'll have a public hearings where individuals will be able to ask questions or to comment on aspects of the budget. We'll be considering an ordinance to approve both the budget amendments for the current fiscal year, and then we'll have 2 ordinances that deal with the budget for 2016. One to set the tax appropriation rate and one to approve the revenues and expenditures for the budget. In addition, there will also be resolutions for consideration by the council for increases in fees such as water, sewer, sanitation, fire, community development, whichever ones are being proposed this year. Not all of those are being proposed for changes this year, but those resolutions will be on the agenda as well. What we typically try to do as a result of that, because there's a lot of people that may come, a lot of questions that may be asked, take some time to go through, a lot of discussion by the council, so we try and limit the other items that are on those agendas in August, so we don't clutter up the agendas too much and you've got plenty of time to listen to the public and do your work. So that just means in September we'll probably pick up where we left off, and we may see a number of items on the first and second meetings in September. But August is generally reserved for the budget, and we hope that the citizens will turn out and let you know and let us all know, what their thoughts are about the budget as we go into 2016.
And the Citizens Guide to the Budget is available
Today.
today?
Actually, it was just released today. It'll be available for the general public tomorrow. It's on the website. It will be on the website if it's not already. I have a bound copy that I received this afternoon, so that's available. As I said, it'll be on the website. It'll be available to the public.
And the process is the Tribune has been notified? They have to be notified on the proposed budget?
Oh, sure. All right. I mean, this is a public hearing.
Yeah.
All right. The media will be here to cover?
No, I mean...
How do you mean?
Before the public hearings. Mr. Marsh was supposed to come up with Citizens Guide to the Budget, report that to the, or was that part of his quarterly report that he just put into the paper the other day?
Oh, that may very well be. Yeah, I might have been just before I got back. But the document, the budget, is required to be published in the paper a certain number of days before the first hearing. I don't know whether that first publication has occurred yet or not. It could be this coming weekend. Do you know,
For
Carrie?
the budget, it's a week prior and the day
Week-
before.
Week prior,
So it'll be
okay.
run
Thank you.
twice.
So probably this Sunday will probably be, this weekend will probably be the first publication of that then in full.
Okay.
And then there'll be a second publication the following Sunday, just before the first budget hearing.
Okay. And for the public's information, the budget hearings will be the August 10th, 17th, and
24th.
24th
Right.
here, so. Anything else, Mr. Bennett?
That's it. Thank you.
Advisory Board and Commission appointments? Do we have any this evening? Other than the Joint Airport Authority?
Mr. Mayor, we still have an opening on the Transportation Advisory Commission.
Okay. If anybody's interested in being on the TAC, please contact Carrie. Work session agenda topics, do we have any coming up? Counselor Daniel?
I believe it's chapter 21 in our city code, but it may not be, but it's in regards to business licenses.
Anything specific?
There'll be a list of it. I guess I'll send you an email.
Oh,
on
sure.
some of the things.
Great.
Okay. Looked like we had a fair sized agenda for our next meeting, which is the 3rd, next Monday at City Hall.
This will be our work session beginning at 3
Yes.
p.m. in City Hall.
Okay, well, that concludes unfinished new business. At this time, I guess I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session, RE pending litigation and land acquisition under Idaho Code Section 74-206 in Pren 1, Pren F, and Pren C.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Is this roll call?
Yes. Counselor Maldonado.
Aye.
Counselor Banky.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Kleber.
Aye.
Counselor Daniel.
Aye.
Counselor Collins.
Aye.
Counselor Randall.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries 7-0. We'll go ahead and take a 3-minute recess. Thank you, everybody, for attending and watching.